Cool.
Okay, we're on. Live from Willowdale, although not live from Willowdale anymore, but we're still going to say we're live from Willowdale because we love that. We're still in the city of Toronto, so we're actually at Dufferin and St. Clair, but hey, we're still live from Willowdale because that's what we like. You know, that was a good tagline for these little videos. And I grew up in Willowdale, so why not? So tonight we're going to talk about a couple issues. We'll start off with Rob Ford, whose death yesterday has brought on a lot of emotion and publicity and what have you, and he was a controversial figure, right? Our 64th mayor was very controversial, and his death has obviously brought in a lot of reflection and analysis. And the Star obviously has a lot of stuff to say about Rob Ford. They basically pointed out some of his personal problems and foibles, and probably helped elevate the Rob Ford story internationally. And Rob Ford became a worldwide sensation. Appearing on Jimmy Kimmel. Bill Clinton even commented on Rob Ford. Wherever you go in the world, if you mention Toronto, they often ask about Rob Ford. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but let me just say this. I just wrote I had a letter in the Globe today, and I wrote a letter to the Star about this as well. I think Rob Ford was good for Toronto. I said this during his tenure. I wrote letters about this. I'm not a hypocrite. I think he was good for the city of Toronto. Yes, he was irritating, and yes, he had Donald Trump-style politics, and some of his statements were repulsive and repugnant. But he brought a lot of character to this city. Toronto is a very conservative, stodgy place. It still is in 2019. Yeah, we're still in the 19th century in some ways. It still is in 2016. And Rob Ford sort of loosened it up a bit, humanized it a bit. Yeah, he had his problems with drug abuse and alcohol abuse, but he humanized what is a very conservative town. And I always thought the publicity he brought to Toronto was a good thing. No, you can't go anywhere. Toronto, let's face it, the Blue Jays, the Raptors, the Leafs, the Pan Am Games, potential Olympics, they could never have brought the publicity to Toronto that Rob Ford did. And I know that's not even talking about his policies. But yeah, I remember being at City Hall once and running into Nick Robertson from CNN. They were all there. They loved the story. It was a human story, and Toronto became a famous city, and it became a less stodgy provincial burg. And people used to say, I spent a month in Toronto one night. 'cause Toronto was a boring, nasty. It's still a boring place. Don't get me wrong. I grew up here. I love it. It's a very livable city. It's got lots to offer, but yeah, it's not that interesting a city. And Rob Ford made it an interesting city. And as Bill Clinton said, when you think of Canadians, you never think of a guy like Rob Ford. You certainly don't. When you think of Toronto, you don't think of Rob Ford. So he made Toronto an interesting place. He made us a more human place, a more, so yeah, I'm not going to ramble on about this, but Toronto is a stodgy conservative town, and Rob Ford humanized it and made it a more interesting place, and the world saw that, and his passing is sad, and way too young, younger than I am. So yeah, that's but yeah, the publicity Rob Ford gave us, and that was inadvertent, by the way, obviously inadvertent, all his personal foibles that the Toronto Star highlighted. And the Toronto Star, I've never seen an instance in recent memory where a newspaper and a politician's life were so intertwined. Okay, the Toronto Star and Rob Ford. And that's, some people said to me, the Toronto Star shouldn't be giving all this coverage to the death of Rob Ford, but that's there. If it wasn't for the Toronto Star, Rob Ford would never have had this fame, and Toronto wouldn't have had this fame. So yeah, that's a newspaper and a politician whose lives were so intertwined. And yes, the Toronto Star was critical of Rob Ford, and kind of embarrassed by Toronto becoming what some considered a laughingstock, but they were responsible for that, and I think it's a good thing. I never was worried about Toronto becoming a laughingstock. It's a conservative, stodgy town. It kind of need to be loosened up a bit. So, and yeah, Toronto's a famous city now because of Rob Ford. Yeah, nothing that the Olympics, the Blue Jays, like I said, the Leafs, the Raptors, the Pan Am Games could never have given us that publicity. So, and that's not even talking about his policies. That's just talking about, you know, his 4 years as mayor. So yeah, Toronto benefited, and Toronto's a well-known city around the world today because of Rob Ford. And yeah, and he passed way too young, 46, way too young. So his policies, let's face it, city council is still dysfunctional. They can't get transit planning, still a joke. There's still no rapid transit into Scarborough. Still a rapid transit, as we were just joking, is a crack pipe dream. Our sober, serious Mayor John Tory with crack track or stupidity track or whatever, silly track, whatever you call it, that's a joke. It's all been disavowed. And there's no rapid transit expansion into Scarborough as we speak. So, at least Rob Ford had an idea about getting subways out to Scarborough, and still today they're not happening. So, Rob Ford's gone, and yet we have a city council that's still dysfunctional, a mayor that's more sober and serious, but it's still not happening. His crack track, smart track, silly track ain't going anywhere, and rapid transit expansion into Scarborough is still a crack pipe dream. So yeah, there you have it. That's all I'll say on that. Moving on to a video we did a couple weeks ago. We didn't use it because I was rambling on. It was about trade, because that was a big. We'll talk about what happened in Brussels in a second, but trade in the U.S. election campaign, trade's a big debate amongst the Democrats as well as the Republicans. Donald Trump rails against trade, China, Mexico, make America great again. And Bernie Sanders does the same. They appeal to the same people. Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump appeal to the same people. Not too bright, caught up in rhetoric. And Bernie Sanders rails against NAFTA. So does Trump. But the facts, the facts are, remember that old Dragnet from the 1960s? That old 60s FBI series? Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. The facts are this. The United States has trade agreements with 20 countries. They have a trade surpluses with all the countries they have trade agreements with. Okay? Now, we're not even talking about China here. China is not part of this. They have a massive trade surplus when it comes to financial services and copyright, licensing, and all that. I'm not even going to go into there. They have a massive surplus. The United States benefits from trade agreements more so than any other country. So, yes, have a lot of American workers been left behind? Absolutely, because the United States doesn't have the social infrastructure. They don't have training, retraining. They don't have. Of course, there have been advances in technology, that have left workers behind. Robots and all that. But the United States benefits from trade agreements. For every $1 billion in U.S. exports, that sustains 6,000 American jobs. So I'm quoting this. I'm actually quoting a former U.S. trade representative who had a fascinating piece in the New York Times last week. Now, Canada's the same. Canada does benefit from trade agreements. As the Star noted in a recent editorial, there's $1 trillion in exports and imports. Well over $1 trillion that are generated with Canadian import stuff we import and stuff we export. 1 in 5 Canadian jobs are related to trade. So we need trade. Yes, the agreements they have to benefit everybody. Certainly, they should be benefiting people in low-wage countries in Southeast Asia, including Mexico. But I do think a lot of the rhetoric on trade is just somewhat it's xenophobic, it's racist, it's demagogy, and that's on both sides of the border. That's on the Canadian side of the border as well as the U.S. side of the border. This hatred towards Mexico is over the top, as is the hatred towards China. I'm happy that Mexicans are benefiting from NAFTA. I'm happy that there are jobs. I'm happy that the Mexicans are benefiting from NAFTA. I'm happy that their lives are improving. Yes, they're still not probably making what they should, but NAFTA has benefited Mexico. I don't hate Mexico. I'm sorry, I don't. I'm not like these people both in Canada and the U.S. that hate NAFTA, hate the Mexicans, hate the Chinese. Yes, we gotta, obviously, trade has to benefit everyone. And yeah, people in Vietnam should be making better wages. You don't want, and yeah, you want a situation like with Foxconn, right? A Taiwanese company that operates in South China that makes a lot of Apple components, where there's suicide nets because the working conditions are so bad, so many people are committing suicide. No, you don't want that. Obviously, you've got to have trade agreements have got to include provisions for better working conditions and better wages for people, particularly in low-wage countries like Southeast Asia. Mexico is not as bad, but Mexico as well. And you got to have retraining programs and all sorts of things in Canada and the U.S. to make sure that people, and social programs to make sure people don't suffer when these trade agreements are signed. But we need trade. We do. Trade brought the United States out of the Great Recession in the early 30s. So you need trade. And you need trade agreements to facilitate trade. So this hatred towards trade agreements is simplistic and stupid, and it comes from Bernie Sanders, and it comes from Donald Trump, obviously, and the Republicans, and now even Hillary. She was for TPP, now she's against it. I don't know what to make of TPP, frankly, but she shouldn't just take a jingoistic position just because she's trying to appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters. You need to have a thoughtful position on these trade agreements, and if one country actually gets hurt sometimes, it's Canada. Look at softwood lumber. Canada's gotten the free trade agreement. I think, who's to say the benefits and the negatives to the Canadian economy? That's a tough one. Most people say we benefited, some say we haven't. It's a complex argument. It's better to have trade agreements with the United States, but trade dispute mechanisms need to be tougher because Canada generally loses. And now we have the softwood lumber dispute, which has been going on for many, many years. And we've had we've lost these dispute mechanisms to the U.S. because they're the most powerful country and they dictate. And so, yeah, and I don't want to see Canada give up supply management. I think our agricultural industry is really important. We need to buy locally. We need to have locally produced produce. I don't want to have to keep buying garlic from China or Mexico. I want to buy garlic that's grown in southern Ontario or it's grown somewhere in Canada. I want to buy blueberries. And, Ontario produces some of the best blueberries in the world. So I don't want things totally given up, which might be given up at TPP. Okay, I'm critical of some of this, but I'm saying we do need trade, and we need to look at these agreements. We can't just dismiss them automatically, because if they open up export markets for Canadian beef or other Canadian commodities or agricultural products, that's a good thing too, right? I mean, we export a lot of beef to places in Southeast Asia, and we export a lot of beef to the U.S. We import beef, we export beef, we export a lot of lumber. So, what I'm trying to say, you get it, right? Let's not say stupid things on trade. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. Just the facts. And the facts are that trade benefits everybody, and that benefits Canada, benefits the United States, benefits a lot of people in less developed countries. So we need trade. Trade is a good thing. Trade barriers just create basically problems in the economy and recessions, basically. So, getting rid of Smoot-Hawley in the 30s. Congress gave Roosevelt authority to Franklin Roosevelt to negotiate trade agreements, and the U.S. economy picked up, and they came out of the Great Recession. Don't get me wrong, the Second World War helped too, right? Once you start getting into a war economy, that helps as well. But trade did help. So, okay, that's enough about trade. Now let's move to what happened in Brussels yesterday. Another outrage, another act of violence, and everyone's up in arms. And let's face it, I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to link it to a local issue. ISIS has nothing to do with religion or Islam or values. They're just a murderous cult that for some reason attracts a lot of disenfranchised people from around the world, whether it's from the US and Canada, from Russia, from Western Europe. They do. And they're just a murderous cult. And that's what they are. They have nothing to do with religion. They have certainly nothing to do with Islam. They're just nuts. They're just nutty cult, and they will pass. And they sprung out of a vacuum created by the Syrian civil war, but also created by the fact that the U.S. invaded Iraq, in 2003, and basically thought the Iraqi army disarmed, basically, disemboweled the Iraqi army, and they all went and joined extremist groups. So, the Syrian civil war, the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003 created ISIS, and the political vacuum from all that, and then they attracted all these nutty people from around the planet Earth. But they have nothing to do with religion. They're just nuts. Okay? They're just a nutty, in some ways a profiteering group, no different than Mexican drug lords, drug cartels in northern Mexico. They have nothing to do with religion. So let's not even bring Islam into that. So, and that brings me to a local issue of last week, where this troubled young man walked into thank God it was only a 1 or 2 day story because it didn't last. He walked into the recruiting center in North York at Young Shepherd, and he stabbed 2 people. Thankfully they didn't get serious. They weren't seriously injured. Minor stab wounds. But immediately, the whole specter of terrorism, and is he linked to terror groups, and I just think this whole thing is silly. Like, he's just a troubled young man who, he invoked Allah. So what does invoking Allah mean? What does that mean? Like, if he had been a Christian and invoked God, it wouldn't have been the same thing. Oh, because he invoked Allah, he's immediately a terrorist. I believe that terrorism and terror should be expunged from journalism and the English language, because invariably they're over the top terms, they're emotionally charged terms or words, and they are also invariably linked to Muslims and one religion and brown people in general, or olive-skinned people. No, just take them out. Terrorism and terror are always invoked, you don't hear it. There's lots of, anytime you're walking down a street and someone puts a knife to it and demands your wallet, that's an act of terror, okay? Anytime you're physically assaulted or threatened by anyone, it's an act of terror, okay? So that word is so abused, and it's generally associated with Muslims and Islam, and it's terrible. And I just say, take it out of the English language, take it out of journalism, because any act of violence is an act of terror, okay? All these whack jobs in the United States go into schools and churches and kill people, it's never an act of terror, right? It's always an act of violence, because terror is only associated with Muslims and Islam, and I think it's disgusting. And what happened in Brussels yesterday will just accentuate the whole problem again. But ISIS is a bunch of murderous thugs. It's a cult of violence. It's what it is, a cult of violence. That's nothing to do with religion. It's nothing to do with Islam. And it came out of a vacuum in Syria and Iraq, some of which we're responsible for. So let's not keep. I think more and more people are beginning to see this too. I think Ted Cruz, nutty Republican, makes Donald Trump look like a liberal. Ted Cruz, we have to monitor Muslim neighborhoods in the U.S. What Muslim neighbors? What are Muslim neighborhoods? Like, come on, it's that's a problem whenever this stuff happens, right? Like, it's sort of like it just generates an idiotic, stupid reaction. And anyways, I'm not going to ramble on. I think I made the points I wanted to make. Stupidity, okay? It's, just deal with the facts, okay? And if we just dealt with the facts in the world, we would have a better society. Oh, Khalid, we're into no signal mode here.
It's still recording.
Oh, it's still recording?
Yeah.
All right.
It's just you don't see yourself.
Okay, well, I don't see myself. I was just waiting. Actually, I was just killing time till you came back.
I see.
Okay, so we're done. I'm just saying, just the facts, man, just the facts. And I don't know if that's whether it's trade, whether it's the whole crap about so-called terrorism, whether it's, on so many issues. Just listen to the facts and not the rhetoric, and do your own research. And the facts are out there. So, and I do look forward to the Donald Trump Hillary debates. Actually, that's going to be pretty fascinating because, despite all the criticisms of Hillary Clinton, she does have the facts at her side, and he doesn't have any. So, I have to admit this will be one of the most fascinating U.S. presidential elections ever. And I have to admit, it is nice to watch those CNN series on Sunday nights about U.S. presidential elections because it gives you perspective. This is not the nuttiest. There have been nuttier ones than this one. Anyways, we didn't get into the budget. All I'm saying is I'm glad Trudeau's running deficits. I'm glad he's putting money into the economy, and I think deficits are good. I think deficits, everyone will tell you, when the economy is sluggish, deficits are good, and Canada can easily handle the deficits Trudeau government is projecting. So even the OECD is saying Western economies have to pump money into their economies, and this is a good thing. As long as it's used properly, we're good. Canada's debt to GDP ratio is so small. We're in such good shape. So I'm glad Trudeau is doing that, and the right wing goes a little nutty about that. But Keynesian economics will work, and I'm so happy Trudeau is doing that. Anyways, I've rambled on. Let's shut it off because we said we were going to run, and we've now run. Is that 22 minutes? Oh God.